"3:12 a.m. An emergency signal flashes across U.S. Central Command. Dozens of one-way attack drones flying at altitudes between 10 and 15 meters below optimal radar coverage. The first wave comes low and slow. Dozens of one-way attack drones flying at altitudes between 10 and 15 meters below optimal radar coverage. Small signatures, minimal heat. Designed not to destroy, but to saturate detection and force prioritization errors. Seconds later, a second layer follows. Terrain-following cruise missiles approaching at subsonic speed, using terrain masking to delay detection until the final moments. Above them, unseen until it is too late, ballistic trajectories are already in motion. Medium-range missiles descending from high altitude, compressing reaction time to seconds. The base is protected by layered air defense Patriot batteries tied to ANMPQ. 6.5 radar for high-altitude intercepts, supported by Avenger systems for short-range coverage. But the attack is not targeting strength, it is targeting sequence. The drones overload tracking. The cruise missiles exploit the gap. The ballistic layer arrives when reaction time is already degraded. The system is forced to choose, and in that delay, it fails. What appears contained is not. It is expanding. Within minutes, Washington authorizes deployment not to escalate, but to contain the situation before it spreads. The decision is made in Washington. The execution happens forward. At a U.S. forward air base in Jordan, inside CENTCOM's operational theater, crews are already on standby. The C-17 Globemaster III is not being prepared. It has been waiting, fueled, configured, and positioned for immediate deployment. This is not a scramble. This is execution. The emergency siren sounds and the system moves instantly. The flight crew arrives by bus, stepping out with flight bags and moving directly toward the aircraft to compress the launch window and minimize exposure on the ground. Maintenance teams are already in position. One team works the landing gear, inspecting struts and tire pressure because a failure here ends the mission before takeoff. Another team is on the wing, tightening bolts, checking panels, verifying fluid levels, removing engine intake covers. These are not preparations. These are confirmations that nothing will fail under load. The pilots move into the cockpit and begin pre-flight procedures, shortened but not skipped. Skipping checks saves seconds. Missing something costs the aircraft. Nearby, paratroopers are already staged. Parachutes secured, rucksacks attached, weapons locked exactly as they will be carried into combat. There will be no adjustments later. What they carry now is what they fight with. They form into columns and move toward the aircraft under low light. Darkness reduces visibility from outside, but increases risk during movement. The formation holds because delay here becomes failure later. At the ramp, each soldier is stopped and checked. The lead NCO pulls straps, tightens buckles, and corrects any imbalance. Not for discipline, for survival. A loose strap at altitude becomes entanglement. Inside the aircraft, conversation is minimal. Most sit in silence, mentally running through the sequence ahead because once the aircraft lifts, everything becomes irreversible. The ramp remains open as the horizon begins to lighten. At the command center, the operation expands beyond the aircraft. Radar feeds, satellite imagery, and ISR data converge. Above the battlespace, AWACS and high-altitude surveillance platforms maintain coverage, limiting emissions to avoid triggering further escalation. Because emitting too early would not just reveal their position, it would confirm presence. Intelligence officers begin mapping threats, air defense systems, drone activity, and surface movement near the drop zone. The pattern is not random. Drone signatures persist across the sector. Cruise launch zones are being analyzed. Ballistic trajectories are still being assessed for follow-on strikes. This is not a single attack. It is a probing action timed to test response speed under pressure. The C-17 is now committed to contested airspace not because it is safe, but because avoiding it would mean abandoning the mission entirely. A medium-range air defense system activates along the corridor. It does not fire. It tracks, waiting for a higher probability engagement window. Unidentified radar signatures begin to appear along the flight path. Not enough to confirm engagement, enough to complicate every decision. This is no longer precaution. This is a live threat environment. Drone activity increases. Surface movement continues near the drop zone. Multiple threat layers, none of them accidental. The escort is requested not because the transport cannot fly, but because it cannot survive the full threat spectrum alone. The Escort does not launch from the same base. Hundreds of miles away, a U.S. carrier strike group is already operating in the region. Two F/A-18 Super Hornets are brought online, not the closest aircraft, but the fastest available without disrupting other operations. Two aircraft cannot sanitize the entire airspace. They are assigned to the most probable threat axis, accepting risk in all other directions. There is no clean solution. The fighters launch not at the ideal moment, but at the last moment before delay becomes exposure. They climb aggressively to reduce intercept geometry and gain reaction time. They are running against the clock. Every second inside contested airspace increases detection probability. Every delay compounds risk. They have minutes, and every minute reduces the margin for error. The fighters close and form on the C-17. The formation holds within limits, enough for coordination, not enough for safety. The threat environment continues to evolve faster than the plan. This drop is not routine. If the zone is not secured within hours, the defensive structure in the region begins to degrade. Once that begins, it will not remain contained. Inside the aircraft, the shift is immediate. No one speaks. Not from fear, but because everything that can be decided already has been. The jump master gives the order. Soldiers stand, hook static lines, and check the man in front of them. Each check is final. The door opens and wind floods the cabin. The jump master looks out, confirming the drop zone has not changed, not because it is safe, but because it is still viable, which is not the same as safe. The aircraft reaches release point. There is no delay. The green light comes on. The first soldier steps out not because it is safe, but because waiting would make it worse. The rest follow at 1-second intervals, not for spacing, but to prevent hesitation from breaking the sequence. Within minutes, the aircraft is empty.
Minimum.
The paratroopers descend toward the drop zone into an environment that has already demonstrated intent. The air phase is complete. The operation is not. If you want to understand what happens when the ground phase meets a prepared enemy after a layered strike like this, watch the next breakdown.